Hi, this is Pamela Groppe Art, and today we are going to paint some cosmos. First, I want to remind you that I do not paint realistically. I go for an effect, and in the long run, they look similar to the flower I'm aiming for, and in this case, the cosmos. Now, I took a picture in my garden, or I should say several, of cosmos. Let me put that down there in front of you. And I'm going from this. Now I counted the petals, and cosmos have 8 petals consistently unless one has fallen off or what have you. And the foliage or leaves are very feathery and light. So we're going to go for that effect. Feathery and light leaves and an 8-petaled flower. So the colors I'm using today will be Thicket, Citrus Green. These are Plaid Folk Art, multi-surface and or Plaid Folk Art colors. And this one is Magenta, and I will have Wicker White, and I will use a little bit of Goldenrod. You could also use Yellow Ochre, that I use a lot, and maybe a little Lemon Custard. That's for the centers, and some June Berry. You could also use Dioxazine Purple, which they have, and or a dark violet color, and it's kind of just to add a little bit of shadowing, etc. So I think that's all the colors I'm using. And the brushes here I am using, this is the small scruffy brush that comes in the Donna Dewberry 10 multi-pack that I always link to. This is a liner, number 2 liner. This is a number 12 flat. This is a Donna Dewberry filbert. This one is a number 10 filbert. I also have the 8 filbert here somewhere. Oh, probably in my tub. An 8 filbert. Also, I like the Royal Majestic. This is a 4170. This comes in a multi-pack of filberts. I use these a lot too, and I like them. And there is a link on the blog post to my Amazon shop that has these in it, so you can find them easily. So there we have our colors, and I'm going to do this, try to do this on a small canvas board here. So let's get started. First off, the foliage. I'm going to start with the Thicket and the Citrus Green. Let me move these out of the way. And I have it here on my palette, and I'm just going to double load my number 12 flat brush. Now I have quite a bit of moisture in my brush. I didn't dry it off completely because I want my stems to be very, very light. In fact, you could actually do this with your liner brush if you preferred. And I noticed that the stems, when they came up, I'm doing this at an angle, so mine are going to be a little bit wider than they should be. And the stems came up, and then they broke off into 3s for the flowers. And then down here would be the stems. Much too wide on these, but like I said, I'm at an odd angle, so it's making it hard for me to do them very, very narrow. Let me see if I could do it better here with the liner. So I get inky paint. Maybe I'll show you how to do the feathers with the leaves. The leaves are they're almost like California poppy leaves. And you have the stem coming out like this, and then it has more stems coming off. And then off of those, a little too much I can see, you have little stems coming off. Make them airy. Don't have to be connected. You're just going for an effect here. And like I said, this is very much like California poppy leaves. So here you have little stems coming off. Now your flowers are your focal point, so don't get overly concerned about your foliage. And you can even do something a little different if you like. Just give it the feathery look though, very light, ferny look. So from what I looked at on my photograph of my flowers, there was no like leaves up here with the flowers. So I'm not going to put any up there. We're just going to leave these. You can put a little bit more down here, very light. Now the paint's running out, so I can really do some feathery light, almost shadowy type of leaves. So there's your leaves. If you want to dress them up a little bit more or create more, you can. It's up to you. This is your painting. I'll just do a little bit more feathery. Now I'm going to go into my magenta. I'm going to make this top flower here, and I'm going to, I guess I'll go with my Plaid Folk Art 10 filbert, and I'm going to load it with the magenta paint on one side, and then I'm going to flip the brush, and I'm going to load the other side in the white, just pulling the color out. You see I have a little bit of white and magenta, and then I'm with the magenta side down. I'm going to turn here so I'm going to start making my petals. Now I noticed that some were underneath the other petals, so that's what I'm doing. I'm making the 4 petals, and you try to get them all the same size. Like I said, I'm having a hard time because I'm at a really bad angle. And now I'm going in, loading more magenta on my brush. I haven't really picked up any more white because I don't want it to get too lightened. And now I'm going to bring these in. Probably should load, make sure I load between at least 2 of the strokes. So there are my petals. This one's a little wonky, no big deal. It's not going to be too much of an eyesore. And not all flowers are perfect, so just learn to go with it. All right, so I'm going to do like a partial flower over here. And let me see how I'm going to do that. I don't know if I just was checking to see if I wanted to go with more white. Let me go with the white. I'm loading with white. I'm not reloading. I did not clean my brush. I may regret that, but I'm going to go with just the white added to my brush, and I'm kind of doing the same thing, except I'm not going to do these bottom petals. That is going to be a partial and or a facing kind of away from me. So I'm going to leave that as is. We're going to leave that be, and maybe it's going to have truncated petals down here, like they're real short. You see how that makes it look like it's angled another direction? Now this one does not have 8 petals, it has 7. Not a big deal. Some of my flowers had 7 because one petal had fallen off for whatever reason. So don't be afraid to diversify your petal count and or your flower looks, because your flowers in your garden never look exactly alike. Now let's see. Trying to think of what I want to do over here. I think I'm going to do maybe a petal that's still kind of folded up. So I'll show you what I'm going to do here. I'm going to do white petals. And what I mean by white is the white is on the downside. And then I'm going to go over to the magenta, and I'm going to kind of go over top of them this way. Now I don't have enough magenta. It's still not blending. They should be 2 different colors. So I'm going to rinse out my brush. And I'm going to go just in the magenta. And I'm going to overstroke that because I can. See how now that's got lots of magenta showing. Oops, a little too gloppy on the paint there. I'm going to rinse my brush again. I'm going to go in just the white. Now the white has a little bit of magenta already streaking in it, so that's not a big deal. And you kind of want that. I'm going to reload with each, because I'm picking up some of the magenta underneath. And there you have, well, I want a little bit more over here. A flower that has, it's still kind of curled up and facing that direction. Okay, so now the details are going to make this. I'm sorry, this one over here is bugging me. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to give it that 8th petal. Now with my number 12, had to rinse my brush out good there, I'm going to come in here with just some magenta on my number 12, the chisel edge. I'm just loading the chisel edge and making sure it's good and sharp. And I'm just going to do some little streaks coming out of the center. Whoops, it dropped my brush on it, but see it fanning out there. Keep them light. Turn your piece as you need to. Now with this one, I'm going to go in a little bit. I didn't clean my brush, just getting some white, but making sure I still have a good chisel edge. And I'm going to, now I could go in with, I think I'm going to go in with a darker purple there to do these. I'm going to wipe my brush out. I'm not necessarily going to wash it. I'm wiping it on a towel. I'm reloading with some of this Juneberry just on the tip. And I'm just going to bring those out from the center, kind of making them in a fan shape, where this corner is always in the same spot, and then flicking outward. Don't need to overthink it. Just get in there and get her done. Alrighty, that looks good. Looks good indeed. I probably am going to, because I don't like this big blank space, I'm going to put a little bit of a vine there, and I'm going to put a bud right there. And I do that with the number 8 filbert, and I'm going to go right into that Juneberry. The buds are really a darker color, and I'm just going to make kind of a teardrop stroke. I'm going to let that dry. And while it's drying, I'm going to go in with my liner, and I'm going to get some of the thicket on my liner. I'm going to go right across here. Just a little touch there. And then I've got some inky thicket, and I'm just going to bring up some little brackets, kind of. Now some come up from behind. Oops, got my hand in that. Just be careful you don't get your hand in stuff. No, it's going to drag that, so I'll wait, or come away from it a little bit too. There we go. I don't worry that a little of the magenta blended in there. It's all going to work. I'm going in with it just a touch more. I'm just going to kind of give it some airy little fronds there. All right, now we're going to do the center. These are not quite dry. I would prefer to wait till they dry, so I'll let that happen and I'll come back. So let's go in and do the centers. Now here's the smaller scruffy. I think this is a 1/4 inch scruffy, and it's dry. I don't want it wet, so I put it in the, this is goldenrod, or as I said before, you can use yellow ochre. And I'm just making sure it's coming out in a circle. And then I'm going to tap it in the white. See how it creates a highlight on that side? And I'm just going to carefully tap this in because I don't want to make it a big circle. So right there, we're going to bring in some details in a bit, just get this part done. Don't squish too hard trying to fill in. You can go in with a liner if it's not filling in completely like you would like. Let me get some more white. The white's not really standing out like I would like. Okay, just right in the same spot. So those two flowers are done. Rinse out your brush, and now I'm going to come back in with the liner, and I'm going to go into the lemon custard. I think I told you I had this color too. I don't remember, but I do. I'm using it. And I'm putting that lemon custard right in the center there. Give it a spark of bright yellow. And then to give a little of the detail or shadowing along the edge, I go in with my liner. I just rinsed it, but I don't want to have it really wet. I don't want it inky. But I just want to touch on it. And since that paint is still wet, it should kind of blend in. So just kind of shadow it along, a little bit along that lower edge. And for the backward facing flower, I'm going to just give it kind of a little stamen there where it's holding it. Now the bud, I'm going to go into the magenta, but I'm going to lighten it a little with a bit of white. I'm just brush mixing it on my palette here, so you see right there. A little white, a little of the magenta. And these buds kind of have a top area like this. It's lighter. And then it looks like it's splitting. Like that. Now I want this to be a little bit more, whoops, too much water in my brush. Dry it out. Go back. I may have to touch that up. Nope, it's okay. And there's the bud. That bud's a little big for these flowers, but you get the idea. You can make them smaller. Go in there with the details. I could put another bud over here. That way you'd have 5. Usually odd numbers are better in your design. Or you could do another flower. Now you don't have to do these on the stems. You can do them a mass. You can do a mass of them, and they would be pretty that way too. That's what I did on the sign I made for a friend, and it was just a motif in the corner of cosmos, and I did a bunch of different sizes. Some back facing, some more truncated on the bottom. And so anyway, so there is how to paint your cosmos.